I think that's an amazing book that talks about how startups should be approached, how to have a lean mindset to business in general. As a researcher, as a PhD candidate myself, and then having finished, I tend to overcomplicate things. And this book really changed my approach to problem solving in general, but definitely setting up a business, approaching, entrepreneurship and evolving into the, right headspace to break into the market. A close second would be the psychology of money, also something that I had to grow into. Always been awkward about money, come from an academic family, slightly socio-cultural bias there as well, with money not being spoken about. It was never explicitly said, but chasing money was considered evil or not really pure, and that is something that I also had to actively switch away from, and this book really helped with that. And I think the insights from the psychology of money, coupled with those from the lean mindset, can really help with approaching entrepreneurship and product development in general in the right way.
You're head of data science at Clade. What does that mean? How do you apply the knowledge of these two books in your current role?
Where do I start? So firstly, the data science department produces top quality data science algorithms, top quality code, and top quality product development potential. But the responsibility of converting this potential into actual product value comes from strategy. And so one has to understand the market requirements, nail down the market requirements, and convert this into a data science story. And then the other way around, once the data science department delivers value, so in our case, these would be algorithms, methods, validation protocols, whatever may it be. This has to now go back into business value that has to be communicated to the stakeholders. So firstly, you have to be able to understand what is really required to make the product roll, what delivers business value, and what is a nice to have. And this is something that sounds simple, but it's really difficult to get right when it's a complicated product with several moving parts. It's very, very hard to nail down exactly what will hit the user's pain point and what will not. With respect to the economic perspective, it's the same. The customer is looking to scale their business up and get business value. So one has to understand how the product will help them achieve their business value and help them hit their targets. And that is where the concept of money and the psychology of money can really help understand what we need to do in order to benefit the client. And this is very different from the research mindset where you're exploring something because it provides knowledge base and whatnot, but rather looking at it in a transactional sort of way really helps in separating the scientist in me from the data scientist in me.
And how do you create such a data story that it makes sense and speaks to people?
So the first part to that is, of course, understanding the user journey. So we have initiative called the voice of the customer, where the customer is interviewed, the interaction with our existing product portfolio is seen, examined, evaluated to see what we could do to add more value on top of what's already out there in the market.
Mhm.
Then a very strong competitor analysis, honestly done, goes into the game because you have to see what else is out there and what can we provide to actually have the customer consider us as a viable alternative. Clade itself is not a huge company, but this goes for any startup, anybody who's starting out new. You can't compete with the big fish out there. So you have to figure out how you can cut through the noise and deliver targeted impact. And this is what we try to do in terms of user requirements. And then we convert those user requirements into user stories. And those user stories are actually data science deliverables in terms of what the team needs to do, what needs to be delivered, and then this goes back into the product department, into the product development lifecycle for evaluation. And this is an iterative process because then if the customer says no, we don't like it, then you go back and we try to do this iterative prototype development until we hit the jackpot.
And what trends do you see there?
The number one trend I see is that the customer is as confused as we are. So you have to have this iterative mindset. This whole assumption that the customer knows what they want is severely misconceptualized. I think the customer has no idea. They know what they think they want and they don't really know what they want, and they're allowed to change their mind, and this is something that we have to roll with. So this would be the number one observation, and this is something that we also try to account for in our development, not restrict ourselves too much, that should the customer change their mind, we don't have to redraw the whole architecture diagram. So we try to keep these contingencies in place, especially when it's something that is tricky or a seasonal trend. But it's also a work in progress
Mhm.
learning journey because sometimes you get it wrong too and then you have to iterate.
And what is the number one talent that you're currently looking for your department?
Number one talent would be scientific know how converted into data science actionables that can then be converted into business deliverables. So, a three-step process that you have the background, you know what to do, but you don't deliver outcome, you deliver output. If these three boxes are ticked, which is a big ask, but this would be the dream contribution to the department.
Okay, explain outcome versus output. What is the difference?
Thank you for asking. Outcome would be what business value is added out of it, or what usability. How does it help with achieving something? Output, on the other hand, is simply getting the job done. Getting the job done is much easier because the output would then be, I don't know, code or even an API endpoint, an application prototype, or whatever. But the outcome would be the actual value that this adds. Output is useless to the customer, to be honest. It just helps you get to the outcome. And if you have output without outcome, then this is what everybody talks about, right? Getting replaced by AI. I think you're one step towards getting replaced already if it's only output that you produce. Output is also much easier to produce because you know what to do, you do it, and you're done. Whereas with actual outcome, you have to iterate until your output gets you the outcome that you want.
Do you feel that your MBA helped with that? Or how did you make sure that you deliver outcome and not output?
I think there are multiple parts to that question. I think my MBA helped in part, but I wouldn't be able to point out one thing that really helped. I think it was an amalgamation of various things along the journey that helped. A little bit was, of course, from the MBA. A little bit was from listening to YouTubers, listening to sort of people I look up to, following AI trends. Growing into this role really helped because I came from a technical and scientific background. My first few roles in industry were also very technical. Moving into a hybrid role with a little bit of strategy and management also helped me slowly break into the mindset required. But also, I have to point out it's a learning journey as well. So I wouldn't really say that, oh, I've nailed the art of providing targeted outcome in every situation. No, of course not. You have to talk to the client. You have to see what they want. You have to roll with it. You have to be honest with yourself, evaluate the product, and really see if it's delivering value, or is it just something that you can show, because showing something is always possible, but showing something useful is another story altogether. So to answer your
Okay, so
question, I think
basically
yes.
through interaction with the customer or then the end users, you make sure that whatever you deliver really has an outcome, so a return of investment then basically, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you have a process or like clear metrics that you always use to check if that ROI is there?
Yeah. So what we usually try to do is ask for customer case studies from our client. So if they tell us that, hey, this is something that we want to evaluate. In our case, it's typically spectral samples. So we ask them for formulations, we ask them for the data that they would want to evaluate and provide insights on in an ideal scenario. And we actually take that and see what we can do with it. And where we fall short, we try to make additions to our algorithm, fine tune it so that we're able to answer these questions for the client. And if we can't, we ask them for more data. We provide data requirements, we provide infrastructure requirements so that we can then roll back, integrate all of that, and then try again. And finally, when we're able to deliver that, we do this via a prototype. And the client then sees if they're able to answer questions of interest or not. Most of our clients come from the pharma industry. So we have formulation development of therapeutics, and they look to answer very specific questions. So it's very easy to have this metric. If the question is answered, then there is a return on the investment. If the question is not answered and you've just got a lot of data which goes around the topic but doesn't really answer the question, then you've not done the job. And then you have to roll back. So our metric would typically be pinpointing the pain point and delivering to it, and making sure that the market actually has possible benefits from this added insight.
I think I need this to be a little bit more visual. So can you give me an example question that a customer would ask?
Okay, so let's think about formulation development, because this is a topic that is hot at Glade. We have a product called the QA scan. And typically, when you have such a formulation, you have a protein and you have excipients, you have stabilizing agents, and you have several things. Now, if I were to ask you, tell me the concentration of every excipient in there, you could probably come up with a method. Then, if I told you that extract the protein spectrum out from this mixture spectrum and tell me about my protein content, you would probably come up with something, HPLC, mass spectrometry, something. But then if I told you that give me secondary structure information, you'd come up with something else. And then if I told you that, hey, I want to make sure that my protein in this formulation is the same as the protein in that formulation, you would come up with something else. But now if I told you that I want to make one single measurement and answer all my questions, how would I do it? And this would be a typical example that we had to actually address, because the client said that, hey, it's of no value to me if I have to do 101 characterization methods to fully answer my question. But I want to do one single measurement and answer all the questions that are relevant to protein formulations. And then we ask them, hey, what is of interest to you? And they say that we want to know the pH because proteins are very sensitive to pH. If the pH is off, then it doesn't work. So they want to know the pH. They want to know how much alpha helix is in there, how much of it is beta sheets, and so on. So once you get these requirements, we try to come up with an algorithm that combines everything that we have, the different methods, so that it can be used out of the box. And now you feed in a spectrum, you get all the output that you desire as a result. The user requirements around protein formulations translated to the
Mhm.
product development lifecycle of the QA scan product, which I picked as an example, to show how a customer can want different insights, different pieces of results from a single algorithm, which might not be possible normally. But if you were to then combine algorithms in a certain way to really cater to the product requirement that the customer has come up with, you can actually create a unique product. And this is what we did with QA scan and formulations, because there were different questions about formulations, such as protein content, excipient concentrations, pH, protein ID, secondary structure information, which cannot all be answered with one single method or one single measurement. The customer basically wanted to have a single measurement that will allow them to get access to different quality attributes in 4 minutes. And this is exactly what was made possible with the QA scan. And this would be one example of where the pain point of the user is translated into data science requirements, algorithms are created, and then you go back to the customer and you say, hey, is this what you want? And in this specific case, it was exactly what the customer wanted, not just this customer, but several customers. And this actually allowed us to make QA Scan a paying product. And it's one of Glade's flagship products at the moment.
Okay. You told me that you work with a lot of interesting people before, academia, industry. Can you tell me a bit how that turned out to be different between academia but also industry?
Absolutely. I think academicians are brilliant, and I had a lovely time during my PhD. I did my PhD at the Mulligan Center for Theoretical Chemistry, where I worked with amazing people as colleagues. I had a really great PhD guide as well. She's an absolute legend. The other professors in the department were also excellent. And so it really taught me to be curious scientifically, ask the right questions, be mindful about the quality of results that I have, and generally contribute to scientific knowledge, scientific curiosity, and the amount of available information that we have out there. It really made me conscious of having a high quality publication, having good papers in good journals, and being able to create impact to scientific knowledge, scientific curiosity, and the pool of research that is available for the scientific community to access. My transition into industry, which actually happened interestingly via an internship at BASF, which was during my PhD even, taught me that real value in corporate sector is not measured by intellectual curiosity or intellectual value add, but rather monetary value add. And when I realized that there was this gap to bridge, it was an eye opener for me in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. I realized that knowledge is great, working with researchers is great, but I actually see myself in targeted value add. And this was the cue also for me to transition into industry. And in my industry roles so far, I've had the good fortune to actually have contact with researchers constantly. So it's been a very nice iterative process where they are available to brainstorm, to bounce ideas off, but the impact is definitely more measurable in industry. If I talk about the people I work with now in industry, it's definitely more product driven, more commercial, more focused on actual outcomes. But there's beauty in that as well. I think I've learned to be more productive with my time, be able to deliver to specific requests and be able to get results in a specific time frame and not just open-ended exploration as was the case in academia. So I think I benefited greatly from both, but the combination, being able to make the best of both, is what I've tried to do and is what I will continue trying to do in my career.
How do you feel that data is handled in R&D versus in industry R&D?
How data is handled in industry and R&D?
Yes, if you compare academia and industry R&D, how is data handled there differently? Or maybe the same way?
I think the difference is right from the beginning. The way you get the data in academia, it's usually publicly available data, open source data, data sets that have been made available for research and development, and also what you then do with the data. In academia, at least our approach to it was to answer questions about the data, get scientific insights from it, and make this available to the scientific community via conferences, posters, publications, and the usual academic routine. In industry, what you would typically do is get data from the client if you can. If not, you would purchase data because now you want to have that edge over your competitor. And in an otherwise automated world, the only real edge that one can have is by having their own custom data at the moment. So all effort, all resources would go into having that edge by either getting the specific data that we need to create an application or being able to buy something very similar so that you can go back to the customer and say, here is something that you would not get elsewhere. So that would be step one. But then once you get the data, you would entirely focus on what the data can do for you rather than what you can do for the data. So you would try to answer these specific questions that would actually allow you to go to market. That is a mindset switch. You're no longer trying to answer every question about the data that you have, try every algorithm, and try everything out there so that you can understand the data completely. This is nice to have, but this is something that takes time and it doesn't really help with the end goal, which is answering a specific question to go to market. So I think that is a little bit of a mindset switch, and this is what we try to do in our everyday data science work at Glade.
How far do you think the data infrastructure is? Do you have data lakes? Do you have clouds that you're working with?
Of course, we have cloud infrastructure, we have on-premise servers. We don't use data lakes. We use databases, data warehouses. We don't use data lakes at the moment simply because we don't have data of that scale and volume that would justify the use of a data lake. But we completely have the infrastructure to scale upwards, and using the cloud is not something that is negotiable.
Do you see that other companies are as far as you are regarding their data infrastructure?
That's a very insightful question. I would say that it depends on the niche and the sector that the companies are in. There are some companies which are way ahead of our data infrastructure and our methods in general. But if you look at the chemometrics and biotechnology space, I would say the competition is pretty low. And I would also say that we are well positioned to actually deliver cutting edge value, cutting edge insights with our infrastructure. Chemometrics tends to be a little bit behind the market, behind the AI market especially, and that is something that helps us leverage our best potential.
Okay, good. Promit, can you tell me what is the difference between outcome and output?
Excellent question. I think output is what we've been used to producing as a community, a part of the employee mindset, the student mindset, where you're given a job and you do it, and then the person who asked for the job has to decide what they want to do with it. You asked for a job to be done, and the job is now done. Now this is your problem. This is the traditional concept in output, and I think we've all been there. It's also the first role you sort of embrace as an employee to produce the output that is desired of you, and you grow into the role and you learn. With AI taking over the narrative so prominently now, much of the output can actually be automated, can be streamlined, and therefore this is not the moat anymore that it once used to be. Merely being able to produce code, produce documentation, produce mediocre results would not cut it anymore. And it's very hard to stand out doing just this. Whereas if you drive an outcome, which is something desirable for a business, something desirable for the community, then you're much harder to replace, and it gives a lot of meaning to your output because you're no longer bargaining with your output, you're bargaining with what the output can do for the person asking for it. I think in data and AI, this is exactly what we have to target as data practitioners, because producing data science pipelines, automated pipelines, is no longer reserved for programmers. Just earlier today, I was playing with a no-code tool, and I actually saw it's easier to implement endpoints with the no-code tool than programmatically. Simply because this particular tool that I was using, it's called N8, and has so many collections. So it's much easier to create flow diagramming instead of programming. And so I don't think this is a unique selling point anymore. But getting the automation to do something for you, to drive traffic, which would result in a conversion, that is an outcome that not everybody can promise. And I think that's the distinction that I want to highlight.
Do you feel that people share on N8N their flows that actually drive a lot of outcome? Or do you think that a lot of these flows are maybe very generic and the things that really drive outcome are somewhere hidden behind IP? What do you think?
That's an excellent question. I think the millions of YouTube videos that you will find on N8N will likely not drive any outcome. However, they will tell you how you might want to use N8N to drive outcome. At the end of the day, you have to figure out how you're going to drive your own outcome. And in general, I always feel that if somebody figured out a way to make great money, they would not be making YouTube videos about it. They would be making the money. And so I would say that for anything, but especially for these videos out there and tutorials out there. I think it is possible to create workflows in N8N and with any no-code, low-code tool that can drive outcome, especially because N8N allows you to mix code with no-code. You can code your own endpoint, you can call code locally, but also the other way around. You can prototype quickly with N8N, see if it would even work or not, and then go and develop a more robust framework with code, should you want to. So I think that flexibility really allows for true outcome to be produced. The documentation and the tutorial is just meant to show you how to find your way around the tool. The rest is for you to figure out. And that's where people can stand out, I think.
So basically we have, again, output in these tutorials, but we want outcomes. So that's what we have to figure out ourselves. Okay, I like that. Did you ever try something else than N8N, like Make, Zapier?
All of them. All of them.
All of them? Yes. What's your favorite?
I like N8N the most. I'm a little biased because N8N is a Berlin product. I'm a Berliner, but I like how N8N feels to the user. It's intuitive and it is very easy to integrate with code, very easy to customize. Zapier has been in the game for a while, so I've been using it before some of these tools even existed. I think Zapier wins when it comes to options and a diversity of offerings. There's a lot out there, but I'm not particularly fond of the look and feel of the product.
Okay, so UI UX is important, right?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
With Make, I have limited experience, only what they allowed me to do for free. It is possible to create really good workflows with Make. But one of the reasons I like N8N is because you can actually self-host N8N on your own server, and this version is free. And so they're part of the open source initiative, and therefore you don't have to pay for your own self-hosted N8N, which I really liked. It's of course not too much to pay for a subscription, but I like the initiative and the outlook to democratizing code that N8N has, and therefore they have a loyal user now.
Okay, that is good to know. Can you tell me where you host the application? Is it Hetzner? Is it AWS? Can you?
No. I would have asked you to continue guessing, but I can tell you it's neither. It's none of the famous ones. It's on DigitalOcean. So I have a droplet on DigitalOcean. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. How come? Why DigitalOcean?
Because I already had a couple of droplets on DigitalOcean. By the way, droplets is what DigitalOcean calls their servers. And so these, because it's an ocean and then each droplet is a server. I already had a droplet which was hosting some applications, and I thought, why not host one more? And basically
Do they also have a free tier?
I think they do, but I needed more space, more computing power.
Yeah, I understand. Like we used once Heroku. I don't know if you know that service.
Yeah.
And then they removed their free tier. And all these beautiful hobby projects, they were just
gone.
Gone then.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was very sad. Okay, cool. And if you're now using N8N, do you have any other AI tools that you think are important nowadays to know and to use as well?
Yes, and so I've been playing around with Lovable recently because I've never been a good front-end developer. But what is even worse is that I don't have a very good sense of design. So I'm really bad at UX, UI. I do know the fundamentals of JavaScript, React. So I could put a website together and call the API endpoints which I have on my backend. But what I wouldn't be able to do is make it look nice, because what nice means to me is usually not nice for other people. Lovable takes a large part of that problem away because it generates these custom pages, which is pretty much the accepted standard. And then you can play with it and very quickly export it to GitHub. make your changes, deploy it wherever, but you have a really good starting point. And the best part is that it works directly with end-to-end workflows with your own APIs. So it's basically completely democratized front-end development. And the tools that we discussed earlier have democratized back-end development. So basically, your full stack development is now completely AI automated.
But you still then check the code manually, right, after exporting it and understand it, or do you...
No, no, no. I mean, very often you don't have very simple pages, right? Your pages would call multiple applications. You will have to make sure that you're load balancing properly, you're calling the right endpoints in the right way. So almost always it would require multiple edits. But I don't find this too difficult either because Lovable makes it very easy to export your code out and then you open it up with Cursor or any other AI assisted IDE, and then you edit it. Once in a while, I actually open up the code in VS Code so that I'm forced to think for myself and code myself just once in a while. But most of the time, I do it with Cursor. And even in
Oh,
Cursor, you can use the voice agent, you can use transcribing tools, and you just tell the application what you want to change, and it'll change it in the appropriate places in the code, and then show you a list of the incoming changes, and you can choose what you want.
I think I need to create an overview with like the most favorite tools that developers currently use. Did you also hear about Windsurf?
Yes, yes. I
Yeah,
haven't used it though.
you haven't used it.
No,
Okay.
no, no. I use Cursor and I use Copilot.
Hmm.
Copilot didn't impress me too much. Cursor completely took my breath away, and since then I've been using Cursor.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that a lot, and then I've also heard people switching to Windsurf because it also creates better test cases.
Could be,
But
could be.
that's what we did not try yet as well, so we will see. Okay. Good. What else? What else is out there?
What else? GPT for code, of course, is now old school. Nobody does that anymore. There are a couple of tools which I've tried for UX,
Hmm.
which generate these Figma-like templates, but I've only
Okay.
used them on a one-off basis, not regularly. There are also a couple of tools that I use for code reviews, but also one-off. If I have to think of the main workflow, it's Cursor, it's ChatGPT, it's Copilot once in a while, and now it's Lovable.
Okay. Yeah. Lovable, I actually tested once and it looked good, but it did not work. And I never exported the code because I gave up on it, but maybe I should try again.
No,
Right?
that is very common with Lovable. It'll have buttons that won't work, so you have to export and then route the buttons correctly. Especially if you want to do complicated things. If your buttons are to call an API endpoint, then you won't have much luck on the first attempt. But that's also perhaps on purpose because Lovable makes money by the number of times you have a conversation with the agent. So if everything is done for you in the first try, then
Oh.
it's basically not a business model that's going to work. Lovable gives
Mm.
you 5 conversations for free, and I think per day, and I think that is meant to show that the tool works, get your interest, but not give you a working product so that you continue talking to the agent and then you upgrade and things like this. I think it's a
Mhm.
calculated.
So how often do you have to talk to Lovable's AI?
So usually, I still haven't paid for the product because I'm not entirely sure that I should. Because as I said, I'm not a front end developer and I don't build websites, on an everyday basis. So usually, I talk to Lovable 5 times a day, get something, quote it, and then work on it by myself using Cursor
Okay.
or without
Hmm.
Cursor, but not using Lovable anymore. And then I come back a day later when once again I have free credits, and then I continue.
So you can export the code even on the free tier in Lovable.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Crazy. Okay. Yeah, that's how you get users to your platform, I guess. Okay.
The only thing that
Very
you
cool.
cannot do on the free tier is edit code within Lovable. On the
Oh.
paid plan,
Mhm.
you can even edit code within Lovable. So you don't even have to export to GitHub.
Okay. Good. I think we should switch topics, otherwise this will be a lovable ad. Yeah, so you also worked in academia, then startup in big corporate. What is your favorite workplace so far?
I think every workplace taught me something. It gave me something to remember, gave me something to regret as well. And it's always the best from everything that I want to put together and take into my next step. But if I had to pick one, I would pick my time in academia. Um, you know,
Really?
Yeah, because I think it was a formative time of my life. I was much younger. I had come to Germany to do a PhD, so that there's that special attachment as well. There would have been no Germany in my life if not for the PhD. Like a lot of Indians back in the day, my initial plan was to go to the US, and it's just that the PhD worked out so beautifully, and I sort of got this group, that I was dreaming of working with, and that brought me to Bonn. and I'm in Germany today only because of that decision. So I think that by itself makes it special. At that time, that has now shaped my personality in a lot of ways.
Wow, that sounds very beautiful. So you're happy that you came here for your PhD. Can you quickly walk me through your career so far?
Sure. Whenever I talk about my career, I sound very old to myself. I actually haven't had that long of a career. But I came to Germany in 2015 in October to do my PhD at the University of Bonn. Before that, I was at a premier research institute in India doing some research on ionic liquids, where I stumbled upon this group that had just moved to Bonn from Leipzig. And because I cited this professor all over my master's thesis, I thought, why not just reach out to her and ask her if she has open positions? And I did it with not a lot of hope, I have to be honest. But she responded
Mhm.
enthusiastically and said, hey, let's talk. And then one thing led to another. And I find myself in Bonn in October. And this is how it all started out. I enjoyed the first few years of my PhD before I slowly started questioning if I wanted to stay in academia long term, whether
Mhm.
I was adding genuine value or not. I was also working on a topic which was very theoretical and unlikely to have real life application anytime soon. But what really helped me figure things out in my head was this internship at the end of my PhD at BSF. I spent a beautiful 4 months in BSF at Ludwigshafen in the quantum chemical catalysis team. It was amazing. Firstly, I've never been at a company that is just that large. Basically, on the first day, they showed me the map of BSF overlaid on the map of Manhattan. That's the kind of comparison that they do with
So you know
BSF.
what? When I've been to BSF in Ludwigshafen, that's when I decided what I want to study. So I studied chemical engineering. So
Oh,
that place actually inspired me as well. Same
lovely,
place.
lovely,
That's
lovely.
interesting.
So
Very
that's
cool.
that's so that's basically what happened. And then I spent some time at BSF. The people were
Hmm.
super nice. I had the good luck of being with a very nice team, very friendly team, and most of them were academicians themselves, so they could relate with my situation at the time. And what I learned was things in industry work very differently. For something to have utility in an industry, you'd have to engineer your way of thought. And this realization made it clear to me that I was not meant to stay in academia. And so after my internship, I came back, wrapped up my PhD, and then slowly moved into industry in data science and AI. Why data science and AI? Because as a computational chemist, it was a programming heavy PhD, and this was of obvious choice. I found a job in digital healthcare, which was really good because it was a portfolio builder, gave me access to different parts of healthcare. So there was
Hmm.
a minimally invasive aesthetic studio, there was a digital midwife, there was a biotech company. So it basically gave me access to all sectors within healthcare, which I loved. And I was a business intelligence developer at first, then became a data engineer for them. So it was a lot of fun. That's when I learned to be useful in industry. For the first time,
Hmm.
producing some stakeholder value, having business conversations. It was a big mindset shift, and something that I had to actually consciously work on. The second jump was a lot easier. It was to a biopharma consulting company, an expert network. I was their first data scientist hire, and I had the good luck to build the team from scratch, hire people, and grow in the role. I stayed there for 2 years, and then I left to join a bioanalytics company where I'm presently the head of data science, leading the data science department. Life has gone full circle in a way. Now I'm back to spectroscopy, material science, but with the added data science and AI flavor on top. I love the role for the impact it produces, but also get to learn a lot with the team I'm leading. Very smart team, very intellectual, strong academic backgrounds. And I think I learn so much mentoring them and working with them. I'm also a freelancer, an independent contractor on the side, and I have my own startup since last year, working with AI adoption, AI ethics, AI adaptability, and in general, productionalizing AI. So basically, for people who want AI to be implemented ethically, sustainably, and sensibly, not just because it's a cool thing to do. This is basically what I offer him, and that's been my career journey so far.
Okay, very cool. Thank you for the intro. I have a question. We talked about outcome and that you measure it like depending on, how impact you drive and whatnot. But during your career, how did you define if you're now at a place where you're learning more, growing more, if that's like the right place to be, and if you improved over time? Was there something?
I found that 2 years is usually the sweet spot because in these science heavy and data heavy roles, a couple of months is what it takes you to even figure out what is required of you. Not the solution, but the question. Even understanding the question takes a couple of months. And then at the 6 month mark, I usually find that I'm at a state where I'm actually useful to the company. And that's when the real challenge begins: growing, learning, contributing. And from past experience, I've seen that past the 2 year mark, I basically tend to hit the wall where I can't directly contribute anymore, where there isn't enough new stuff to learn anymore, and that's when I start slowing down a little bit. So for me, I think real impact happens after 6 months, but until the 2 year, 2.5 year mark is reached. After that, personally, I tend to saturate, and I find that real impact isn't happening. And for me, it's very important, as you said, to go to work and learn something new every day, or at least have the opportunity to learn something new every day. I think at Clade, this has been very real because of the team that I have to lead. Just talking to them keeps me on my toes. There's always something that I learn from every code review, and I'm like, oh my god, if they're that good and I have to review their code, then I have to pull my socks up as well. And I think that's been great for my career journey as well. When I look back and have conversations about staying on top of AI developments and being able to stay technically relevant, because this comes up a lot now in the AI context, I think I really have my team and my job to thank for that. If not for them and if not for the pressure that comes from them, I don't think I would have been able to keep up, even to the extent that I've kept up. I'm not claiming to have kept up completely, but even to the extent that I've been able to stay in the game, I don't think I would have been able to do that without them and without the job.
Okay. And how is it different from being just a data scientist to leading a data science team?
I think part of it lies in the output and outcome conversation that we had. As a data scientist, I at least have been very focused on generating a large amount of results. I have to also confess that I started my journey as a data scientist when Gen AI wasn't an everyday thing. There was no chat GPT in the game. So it was pretty cool to be a data scientist. It was pretty cool to be able to write code that would land in production. And so the bar was a lot lower as well. You didn't have to produce true impact as a data scientist. You could just be writing code, have dashboards, show results, and it was still accepted. But for me, it was just that in the beginning. And then I realized that I'm not getting fulfilled because I learned a few technologies. Of course, coming from academia, it was nice to learn to work with the cloud, learn how to communicate numbers, build dashboards, and things like that. But that charm wore off pretty quickly. Once you learn it, right? And then I started asking myself, how do I produce impact? How do I measure the worth of what I'm doing? And that's basically what led me into the next role. And then in that role, I started asking myself the same question, and that's what led me to the next role. So I think as I grew in my corporate career, I realized that my own milestones, have also grown. It's always been a moving goalpost, and now leading a team, impact is always measured in terms of what is visibly produced. What have you, done for the company, and not what have you done in code or done in out. And I think that is something that is very important. And so when we think of strategy, we always think not of why you'd want to do it or how, but more importantly, what it would actually bring for the overall business. And
Mhm.
keeping that going, taking a business problem, making it a data story, taking the data outcome, translating it back into business outcome. I think that is where the lines between being a data scientist and leading a team, get blurry.
Okay. To wrap up our conversation, what would be advice that you would give to someone that is just starting out in data science?
I'm most comfortable answering this question in terms of advice I would have given myself
Mhm.
when I had started from today's vantage point. So I will do that. I would have said, don't take yourself that seriously. Stay curious, stay happy, and just absorb as much as you can. Because I think the amount of information that you allow, to come your way when you're starting out can really make or break your data game going forward. I used to pay a lot of attention to, as they say in English, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So understanding every little detail, typical academic mindset. I think it really backfired because that time would have been much better spent just seeing what's out there, where I can add value, what truly excites me, what am I passionate about. And I
Mhm.
think this is what I would tell myself if I could go back in time, that just stay
Mhm.
curious, stay relaxed, see what's out there, and then pick what you want to do.
Okay. And if you would want to hire me specifically, what would I have to do and fulfill so that you think that I'm a team fit and also a skill fit for your department?
I think what is very important for me is to see the curiosity, to see the desire to contribute and make things happen. I think this personal characteristic in the form of drive is more important than any technical skill set in the end, because I've seen very technically skilled people not being able to contribute simply because the visions don't match, or they are not happy to take instructions in a certain way. They're very rigid about the way they want to do things, and it's very sad to see because they're technically so skilled and so competent. So for me, it would always be the personality, the openness in the mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and the general desire to stand corrected, because I think life in general has a way of humbling you, but in data and AI you get humbled every day. And if you don't enjoy it, then I think it's very difficult to work with me. And this is something I look for in the beginning, if I can. But then, of course, I do like to deal with technically competent people, people who can understand data flows, people who understand the infrastructure, people who can connect the data to the science behind it as well. All of that helps, but it always starts with the mindset and the personality.
Okay. Now give me 3 words that you think will be important for the future of AI and data science.
Innovation, curiosity, humility.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for being here for this podcast. It was really nice talking to you, and we hopefully see each other at some point in time again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.